Hello there, it's Michael from m.e.n.d.yourself.com, Move, Educate, Nurse, Decompress. I'm going to do a short video right now about the human lifespan, again, which is a pretty common topic for me, as well as I'm listening to these motorcycles go by, as well as your perception and some of the things that you should be thinking about, especially when you're educating yourself on a daily basis. This could also be included in the daily journal. If you haven't downloaded the daily journal, it's free on the website, and feel free to download that and use it daily. So my video today is regarding what your perception should be as far as, is one better than the other on the topics that I'm about to address, and what are ways to make corrections. So basically it's this: if you were going to die today, what would you do? If you were going to die in 6 months from now, what would you do, or how would you live your life? If you were to die in 5 years from now, how would you to live your life? And if you were to live your entire lifespan, what is it that you would do today, given those four considerations? And which one is the more correct of the four? And why are there contradictions between what we do and how we perceive or actually address our life if we are focused on one versus focused on the other? And what I recommend, and I do this quite regularly, I can't say whether or not I do it daily, but at this point I've been doing this for a while, and I think that I actually do this to some regard on a daily basis, is review your answer to the question to all four of those. And this is not something that takes a long time, and the more you do it, the more that this is a regular concept in your head, the more solid you're going to be in your actions, which basically some people would call discipline, and the more grounded you're going to be to your own core philosophy and principles. So let's just start with, what would you do if you were going to live just for today? If at the end of today your life was going to end, and what that means to you and your actions. So I can say that today, that even if I knew that at the end of this 24-hour period my life was going to end, I would still mend myself. I would still move my body. I would still educate myself and try and get a more clarity of how I feel and all of these things. And I would nourish myself with healthy food, and I would try to have a nice decompression and a non-stressful event or day. So, because to not do any of those things would be silly. So we can look at it from the extremes. Would you just sit on the sofa and do absolutely nothing and not experience your last day on the planet? No, that would be silly. Would you not have contemplation of your life and what it meant to you and what it means to you and what it means for it to end tonight? Would you not do that? Would you try, I guess the opposite of that would be to either sleep through it or to totally numb your mind so that you don't even have any comprehension, like excessive alcohol. So no, you probably wouldn't do that. You probably wouldn't drink at all. You probably wouldn't do any drugs at all. You'd be doing something highly grounded and present. Would you nourish yourself, or would you eat shitty food? Would you go to eat fast food and drink soft drinks all day long, or would you go eat a nice meal? You'd probably eat a nice meal. I mean, I guess people that are on death row, there's actually something that I just saw on YouTube the other day, and it was an artist that reconstructed all of the death row meals, and most of them were actually pretty healthy, and then some of them were like a bowl of ice cream and this kind of thing, so I think one guy had one marshmallow on a plate with a fork and a knife, so anyway, something silly like that. So, but you probably wouldn't do that if this were your last day. And then decompress. You try to not be in any more stressful of a state than you knew that you were going to be in. And actually, you would probably consider that, it would be nice for me to actually leave here not stressed out. And you'd probably try and find some way to have like an inner peace, despite the fact that you know that it's going to be the last 24 hours. And I know that this actually occurs because being a nurse, I see this or have witnessed it many, many times for people that actually were in their last 24 hours of life. So that's one consideration. What would you do if you only had 24 hours left? So we'll take it to the next step. What would you do if you were only going to have a year left? And I can tell you this is a question I asked myself about a year ago when I was learning Tibetan Buddhism and meditation. And I was on this path of learning this because it was a goal of mine. And it was very beneficial to me in my progression through life. And on one of my other videos, I can't remember which one it was, speaking exactly about this. And what I decided was that if I knew that I only had a year left in my life, I would want to live it in a healthy fashion, but I'd also want to live it close to my family and friends. And so I chose to move from Denver, Colorado, which is where I had a really good job, and I had good friends there, and it was a beautiful environment. And I actually chose my family and to be in proximity to my family versus the environment of living in Denver. And now I've been back here for about 4 months, and it was an exceptionally good decision. And almost immediately as I moved back, some things started to happen, and I got such a close connection to my family and where they actually needed me. So I put myself in a position to offer support to the people that I love because of the decision that I made. So it was, in a way it was selfish, in a way it was selfless, and it just worked out. So, you know, we can say that the universe was basically offering me this path, and I acknowledged it and I took it, and then it turned out to be a very, very good decision, so that I'm glad that I did that. So as far as the living 1 year and mending yourself, you're still going to do the same thing. You're still going to want to move your body. You may go do things like skydiving and bungee jumping and go see the Grand Canyon and hike in the Grand Canyon or something like that. Who knows? But basically the same thing. You're not going to be lethargic sitting on the sofa for this precious year that you have left. You're also probably going to try and find a way to find some peace with the people that are around you, and as well as yourself. You know, so this goes back to more educating yourself and journaling. And then nourishing yourself. You may not be so focused on the nourishing aspect and how this is going to affect you a year from now, but hopefully it'll still be something that you're going to be, you know, give consideration to. And then decompression, same deal. You're probably going to try and limit the amount of stress and increase the amount of good experiences you have, and actually make good use of your time. So that would be if you only had 1 year left. So now if you had 5 years left, what would you do? Now this actually changes the focus a little bit onto, now you actually start to have to take some actions today to put yourself in a position to be successful in 5 years from now. So the 5 year is very similar to if you were to live your full lifespan. So this is why it's actually good to have a very strong understanding of what is the human lifespan and how do I achieve a full human lifespan. So for me, I'm 43 years old, and I know that I've got approximately 14,500 days left if I were to live what the U.S. government would have calculated as my full human lifespan, which basically puts me at about 82 years old. So this is something that I'm actually quite aware of, and I have a dry erase board at home, and every few days it says DTE. This morning it said 14,512 days. Last time I erased that and put the new number up, it was 14,588 days. So 60-something days have passed since I actually corrected that on the dry erase board. So that was in itself was was a trigger point for me to actually have consideration that, I have a lot of days left, but a lot of days have passed really quite quickly without me changing that date. So fortunately, I know for myself that I've actually made a lot of progress in that 60 days. I've done a lot of things that I think have put me on a path for a successful journey, and this was every day in that 66 days. So as far as moving, educate, nourishing, and decompressing, if you're going to live that 5 years, or if you're going to live that full lifespan, that 14,000 days for me that I have remaining, and many of you probably have much more than that. You may have 20,000 or 25,000. You may only have 5,000. Whatever it is, that's still a lot of days, and you still have to take control of your mind and of the behaviors and habits and patterns of reactivity that you have in order to make sure that, one, you live this full lifespan, and or at least you take responsibility for the things that you can and affect the things that you can in your life to ensure that this happens. So basically it's action. So same thing, you have to move yourself. You're going to have to exercise. You're going to have to build yourself into a strong physical being. You're going to have to nourish it with good quality foods. You're going to have to hydrate it. You're going to have to just basically nourish yourself. And then it helps, and you really can't do it without educating yourself about yourself on a continual basis. So part of this education is exactly what I'm talking about right now. Having a good grounding in today, and then also a strong consideration of what the future is and what it's going to take in order for you to have a successful, healthy future with well-being and happiness and this type of thing. And then as well as decompressing, and what are the things that you're doing right now that you use for decompressing from stress, and how is that going to affect you if you were to live this 5 years, if you were to live this full lifespan. So that's when the consideration comes of contradictions. And you may say, okay, well, if I were only going to live for 1 day, or if I were only going to live for 1 year, I wouldn't quit smoking. And if I'm going to live or attempt to live my full lifespan, then I have to quit smoking. So anytime these contradictions come up, that's a point of focus, and you have to figure out what is more important and why it is that you're actually implementing these behaviors to begin with. So as far as smoking, is it something that you're doing just because it's social? Is it something that you're doing that's because it is something that is a crutch for anxiety and for emotional distress and for decompression? And if that's the case, and you know that it's not something that you want to do, but you have more of an addiction towards, then the way to correct that is to have a greater understanding of why it is you do it, and to think about these things and what it means. So basically, I think that, and cigarettes is a good example, because cigarettes very likely, high probability, will decrease your lifespan. It will decrease the amount of days that you have on this planet. So if you're okay with that and you take ownership of that, then that's fine. But to think that that's not going to occur is arrogant and ignorant. So if you're going to continue to do things that may decrease your human lifespan, may decrease your health and happiness and well-being, then, and you don't take ownership of it, then basically it's just arrogant, or ignorant. Ignorant would be taking the line of Uncle Johnny smoked for 90 years and drank beer all day long for 90 years. So I'm in the same gene pool with Uncle Johnny, so I can just do whatever I want and basically have the same outcome as him. So that's one thing that people say. Another thing that people say is that, well, you have to die from something, which is true. You have to die from something. You will die from something, and you can choose what it is that you die from. People do it all the time, and then you can die from things that you had an influence on. That happens all the time too, which is fine. But just take ownership that if you are dying from something that you had an influence and probably could have prevented, and to just be okay with that. Don't be upset about it. Don't blame it on someone else. Don't blame it on the world or the universe, or, oh, why is this happening to me? This is so horrible. And, why can't healthcare save me from this situation, that you put yourself into for 40 previous years. Hold on one second. I'm going to show you this bird. It's beautiful. So this is the reason that I ride the motorcycle. The reason I ride the motorcycle, and some people call them organ donors, is because if I were to only live for 1 day or 1 year or 5 years, all 3 of those are still going to put me on a motorcycle, because I like the way the motorcycle feels. It keeps me grounded. It's exciting. It makes me happy. It puts a smile on my face, and that's just so beautiful. It's the reason I live here. Same reason that I'm on the motorcycle. The reason I exercise every day is very similar, because just like I want to be on a functioning motorcycle that's high technology and that can do amazing things, I want to have a body that puts me in the same position. I want to be able to do sprints on the beach. I want to be able to climb a mountain. I want to be able to climb some stairs. I want to be able to go on vacations and not be limited by my own physical creation that I'm responsible for. So if something were to happen and I were to get cancer, then hopefully it's not something that I influenced on my own with my own behaviors. But we never know. But what we do know is that the human body must be moved. The human body must be nourished. The human body must be decompressed in a healthy way. Because stress affects us negatively. And stress is a poison, just like cigarette smoke is a poison. So, and you can't not have stress in your life, because that's just a part of life. So you need to find a way to de-stress, to decompress in a healthy way. So basically, I would also recommend watching some of my other videos on the human lifespan. I speak more about that 14,000 day consideration type deal. So anyway, have a good day. Man yourself, move, educate, nourish, decompress. Thank you for watching, and check out the website and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.